Hey guys, Cruel Blind Wave, I'm Eric.
I'm Calvin.
Aaron.
And we are here with the finale of Mr. Robot. Last time on Mr. Robot, in the alternate world, our Elliot was enjoying the fruits of other Elliot's labors.
I think he's gonna enjoy him now.
Yeah.
Sounds hedonistic, but it kind of is.
Yeah. And then shit happens, and that other Elliot seems to be no more. At the very least, was asking for help, and our Elliot said, "I'm sorry," and it was very sad and dark. And I am just so interested to see how this show wraps up, because it felt like it wrapped up, and then it's doing like almost like an epilogue with this, but I don't know.
Well, they defeated the Dark Army kind of thing, but we never found out what the device did.
Yeah.
And now we're figuring out what the device did.
Sure.
What it's gonna do.
I think.
But it seems like it works, so why they had to move to the Congo to begin with? Just do this.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, I don't know.
Right? I don't know. I'm very curious to see what happens here and how things wrap up. I don't know. I mean, we haven't had like Mr. Robot, but we have his dad alive, you know? So I don't know. I don't know what's gonna happen with that.
All right, well.
All the bad things that happened initially for Elliot hasn't happened, but we also don't have Darlene. But hopefully she's living nice back in the other world.
She did kind of have like a send off, I suppose.
Yeah.
She's off to go do a thing. But,
And
yeah.
go on vacation.
Yep. Yes, she is.
Sleeping.
Alrighty. Well, let's see how it finishes. You notice that this world color correction feels a little more warm.
À savoir comment.
He could have scooted over to the curb a little bit more.
Hey, he said don't judge.
Same.
Come on, man.
I was wondering if you were gonna show up.
Mr. Robot here? Ooh.
Wherever you go, I go. Remember?
We're in a world where everything's better.
Not for him. Just who exactly do you think the thief is here?
Yeah, you're gonna go take a picture for a wedding that you didn't plan. Can you imagine if like we followed that Elliot as a protagonist and the finale was a doppelganger comes and replaces him?
I know.
I think the show would be a lot more boring following this Elliot.
It
though.
would, but I'm just trying to like...
Fortunately, I can't let you get away with this.
Is that
Shayla?
Dominique?
Yeah. Police officer Dub.
Quite a while, I'm gonna have to give you a ticket.
Is this his ID or his ID?
Right?
Wait, would his ID work?
Don't think so.
This person is nothing like you.
Wait, does he not look like Elliot Alderson?
I'm headed to my wedding.
Which is it? You're moving or you're...
That's the most suspicious face I've ever seen in my life.
So suspicious.
Both.
And it is such a terrible lie for being in a tux.
Blood. Blood.
That's why you put it in plastic.
Fucking now, take 2 steps back and get on your knees. Get on!
Calvin.
Is she like not gonna see it? Or is she just body?
She saw the blood.
You gotta be fucking kidding me.
Earthquake! Don't accidentally shoot him!
Oh man, I thought he was gonna grab it from her right then.
Angela is dead.
Not in this world.
That's not Angela.
I talked to her!
No, you didn't.
Is he in like a simulation?
Could be. How's this train empty? In the middle of the day in New York. Shouldn't it have someone on it?
NPCs are expensive to render. We're in a simulation. Oh. Whoa. Did they have...
Masks on.
That's strange. They all look exactly the same.
You said NPCs are hard to render.
You're right. Yeah, I think.
Now they don't even have to have unique faces because they all have the same mask. Is
I
it
love
gonna
that
be
organ coming in.
Yeah.
So good.
Now you wanna help?
Mr. Robot Jacket?
It's a hoodie over his tux.
What the fuck is going on? Where's Angela?
Why did the Elliot ID not look like Elliot or whatever?
Yeah.
There was never gonna be a wedding, Elliot. That's what I'm trying to tell you.
like the last moments of his.
White Rose's machine created this. That's why we're here.
No, it didn't. This is a world you created.
I created.
Like a mind palace?
Yeah.
So. This is some kind of.
Like a world where he's idealized version of himself?
No. Not a dream. Prison to keep him occupied. So you could take control of him.
Who?
The real Elliot.
Our Elliot is the third Elliot?
The real Elliot.
Is that who he killed?
I'm the real Elliot Alderson.
You're no more Elliot Alderson than I am. You're just like me. Only a part of it.
That's why the ID doesn't match?
Who the fuck am I?
You already know.
Like the one who took all of Elliot's pain? And his footsteps were echoing on the beach, and that was weird.
Angela!
He echoed.
Yeah, because he's not on the beach.
Sounds like we're in a prison. That's so cool. What a cool idea.
Mm-hmm.
To show that we're not actually here. That's fucking genius.
You're not Elliot. You're the mastermind.
Get out of your tux.
He's like the character Elliot created to enact
Well, yeah, he's literally the person from the comic
the
books
comic book.
that he made up.
His dark passenger.
Yeah.
Hey!
Mr. Robot's the passenger's passenger.
It would make sense that the Master would be so busy, but
Oh, he's adorable.
that's hilarious. That's really fucking disturbing.
It's so
actually.
disturbing. I could only laugh because I was so disturbed.
I
I love it.
love
Damn
and
love
hate it.
Damn deep fakes.
They all look kind of like him, but not exactly like him. It's great.
Dude, the prison's noises are nuts. Ah!
Everyone's staring at him.
Bonsoir, Elliot.
Oh god, he woke up.
Who's pulling him?
It's
Wellick?
Wellick, yeah.
Ready or not, prepare to die. Is that what they said?
Just please wake up.
He's in the hospital.
That sounds like a beep beep.
Yeah,
Like he
he's
was-
like a heart monitor.
He was found at Washington Township.
Yeah, maybe.
Elliot, please wake up.
Or he's been in a coma for like a year, like what Mr. Robot was saying. It's like this is just a dream to keep him busy.
Well, the dream to keep busy was the other
Back
guy.
at the therapist place.
Hello, Elliot.
I don't know if it's real.
Not listening to this.
So he was trying to put real Elliot in a place where he'd be just happy, never want to leave.
We need to discuss Elliot's dissociative identity disorder. The first personality was created the day Elliot jumped out the window.
You're sick and don't admit it.
He's wearing the hoodie there.
The movie's about to start.
The protector personality.
All I was trying to do was take those punches for you.
Thank you.
Mr. Robot. The persecutor,
Get up!
blaming Elliot for the abuse.
I hate you. You're nothing.
Not long after her came Elliot's younger self, who emerged to handle the abuse he couldn't tolerate. He'd created his own family of sorts.
We're deep down inside you, Elliot. You can't leave us, and we can't leave you.
I guess she doesn't know about you.
I know all about them too. Warriors who think they aren't a part of this despite being here for all of it. But there's another one who came about not too long ago.
I don't want to hear this.
Mastermind.
The truth about who you are, I think it's time. Even they agree with me.
It is the end.
I know where you're going with this.
You wanted to shelter him, which is why you changed his past.
I want you to tell me about your father.
Kept shoving me away, shoved me so hard I fell backwards out the window.
I watched the whole show again.
That's why you went to such great lengths to take down all the evil that surrounded him in the real world. So you formed F Society,
Can't wait to marry you tomorrow.
trapping him in an endless loop
I'm stuck in a repetitive, boring routine.
to keep him safe until you were ready. The personality created to carry Elliot's rage.
Fuck society. I was angry. I hated myself. Angela's dead. She's fucking dead. There's something inside me that can't let go of what we started.
He forgot.
They all think I'm the ringleader. How do I take off a mask when it stops being a mask?
Is this you or?
It's me. Sometimes my mask takes over.
He sometimes can become a different person.
See me, Elliot Alderson. I am here. I'm the only one that exists.
You're not Elliot. You're the mastermind.
And now it's time for you to give that control back to the host.
No!
This isn't your control. This is your rage.
Well, then maybe it's time I used it.
If you wake up, you'll just be stealing Elliot's life again.
My life. It always will be.
Dude, that silhouette right there, like, it's like the other Elliot. That's so cool. Narrowly avoided. High definition news.
Oh my god, you're finally awake.
Oh, with Darlene, everything righted itself.
When you cut the power supply, it malfunctioned and blew up. It was under the rubble, totally pulverized. Guess it's official. You saved the world, Elliot Alderson.
I don't think I can do this.
Do what? As long as you could hold my hand, then you would know that this is real. And I am telling you, this is real. I was there with you through all of it. This isn't in your head, this is real.
But I'm not.
What are you talking about? Of course, you are real. You are right here.
Not him. I'm only a part of him.
I know.
She still cares for him.
At first, I thought maybe it was you, but different. But then when you forgot who I was again, it wasn't hard to figure it out from there. We were spending time together. I felt like we were finally getting close.
And a lot of shit hit the fan and other things to worry about.
Sure.
I mean, even if you're a part of my brother, I'm gonna love you too, you know?
She didn't do anything. It was me. I wasn't there for him. Is he okay?
I stuffed him in a box.
I made a safe place for him. I want you to know I love you. Hello, friend. God, that's always been lame, hasn't it?
Man, look at that guy. So he's in the backstage with them now? Does that mean
I
real
think
Elliot's out?
I think he's back in Elliot's mind.
Yeah.
Even though we'll be gone, it's like Mr. Robot said. We'll always be a part of Elliot Alderson. And we'll be the best part. Because we're the part that always showed up. We're the part that stayed. We're the part that changed him. And who wouldn't be proud of that?
He's joining the Voyeurs. It's a black void. That's pretty good.
So cool.
I love that.
It's like the continuum of Elliot's life that they just get to watch now from the...
Yeah, I mean, that's what I pictured the cutting for and him crying and different
Yeah.
things too, is him watching what Elliot's doing, and they are now passengers watching what he does.
I wonder what Elliot thinks happened.
Cry.
Yep.
Hello, Elliot.
Ooh. That's cool.
Mm-hmm.
I like the way that the ending, like, you know, is it a black void? Like, well, they go and they sit in a movie theater,
It
which
is a
also
black void.
reflects into the like the memories and stuff that we had back in the past too, like the Back to the Future and that kind of stuff. But
Oh, yeah.
they get to sit there and they can watch what Elliot's doing, like they're there for the ride kind of thing, you know.
Yeah.
And the cutting aspect, like the first one, I was like, okay, well, like now we're watching, so then they want to zoom in and stuff, but then they did it more, and I'm like, oh, we get a little bit of like time passage of like what they're seeing, which is really cool.
Yeah. That's great.
I liked it.
No, I feel like years of having the conversation about how Lost ended, Severance and Doom Patrol has prepared me for this, in terms of like, because it's hard. I can't relate with his character, but I love him. I love all the versions of him now that I understand. You know. It's really good.
Yeah.
No, I mean, it was one of the things we hadn't gone back to for a little bit, I guess, was the talking about the other one. We went back to that table with the kid and the mom, and we never kind of came back to that. And we had the whole thing about like, I need Mr. Robot saying about needing Darlene, and Darlene would be the one to be able to like break him out of it, kind of thing. And I'm like, well, what are we doing with this then? What do we, what's the idea with that aspect? But then we went to like the other world, and I'm like, I don't know what's going on with this, but I mean, I guess should just go into the idea that every season we just be like, something's not real.
Yeah.
What is not real? Is it Mr. Robot's not real? It's like the prison's not real. It's like Elliot's not real. You know, like it's just a constant thing of like trying to guess what is not real.
Yeah.
You know?
I mean, in using, you can't really quantify this or qualify it, but like he is real. You know, he's just not the primary. You know, like.
Sure,
that's why I include Severance in there.
Yeah.
You know, it's like he is a person. You know, he has thoughts and feelings and wants and desires and preferences and stuff too, but he's not complete. He's not whole, and he doesn't know why. And I really want to rewatch the show with all that in mind. I mean, I still have questions. You know, like I have no idea what Angela saw that made her think that. You know, it seems like it has nothing to do with what we saw, right?
Sure, well, he shut down the machine.
He did.
We didn't see what the
That's
machine
not
was
the
meant to do.
I understand that that's not the focus and the focal point of this. The focal point needs to be now that the mastermind has achieved what he wanted to achieve, and like he literally like made a place for Elliot to live in. You know, like he was doing that in his like mind and trapping him and wanting to take over, but in bettering the world as the mastermind, he's now let Elliot into a world where it's going to be a little bit better.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean,
that was his whole goal.
Yeah.
Like there was a protector. There was like several protectors, but
and I wanted to say and now his watch has
guess.
ended, but it's only begun.
Yeah.
Well, the game he played on the computer, like that individual who is stuck in that prison with him,
exit,
and leaves him a note where it's like, "Please don't leave me."
Mm-hmm.
Like. It can kind of reflect to the actual Elliot who is inside this loop and he can't get out, you know. But it's like, so you're just gonna like the whole thing with like the thief aspect, like all that kind of stuff. It's like you're just gonna steal his life, and it's like, but that's his life's out there. You've already stolen his life. Like you need to give it back to him. You need to take him out of the prison. You need to get him out of here. You know.
Mm-hmm. I'm curious if this was the narrative intention the entire show. Because I feel like. It either was and it's great, or it wasn't and it's better than great because they made it into it. You know.
I don't feel like it's got a disconnect or anything.
No, I don't think so. Like I'm thinking back to season 1. I'm thinking like, oh, Mr. Robot is the one that is taking control and doing all the hacking stuff. But does that mean that was actually the mastermind doing that? But Mr. Robot's like protecting his fragility of personality? Somehow by taking like the blame of that, or were they both doing it separately? You know, like there's definitely questions I want to rewatch and ponder those questions. I'm sure there's a lot of internet fan theory and stuff.
Yeah, I mean,
there,
Mr. Robot does stuff, but also Elliot did stuff, and there was times where like they swapped of who was in charge and stuff too.
Yeah.
But I think there's also. Are you thinking more of like when like he's working with Wellick and then Elliot's against it and stuff? And
no, I'm just interested to because I mean I remember most of that stuff, but not with this lens. So I'd just be interested to see, like, oh, if you look at it with this lens, you're going to pick up this line a little bit more than you would the first time you watched it, which is one of my favorite parts of fiction. So I've been greatly anticipating this.
Sure.
I think the thing with Mr. Robot is you need to look at any time that he is in control is what is it that he can protect Elliot from.
Yeah.
And that's what his goal is.
Sure.
You know?
Yeah. But sometimes you had the feeling, especially in the first season, that Mr. Robot is the radical and Elliot won't go far enough. Whereas, like, it feels like it's actually the other way around, but Elliot just doesn't have the capacity to see it, maybe? I don't know. Do you think there's any intention? Go ahead.
Well, I was going to say on the radical thing, like, it doesn't necessarily have to be that Elliot's not radical enough, but that the plan,
it hasn't come to fruition or
well, yeah, like you could be like, well, this is the radical stance and the plan that we're going to have, but Elliot as a mastermind may be like, I don't think that the end goal is going to achieve that. So, like, he may not seem radical enough, but that may just be the way he's looking at the way the plan
well, because mastermind is fueled by rage, right? Like, that's his, like, inceptor.
Sure.
Said, right?
So maybe he's the anger and the rage and everything kind of coming out, and that's why he's vengeful against evil and a vigilante and all those things. But that also doesn't mean that you have to be that he has to be so too radical to the point that the plan isn't the goal, right? Like that I think for the mastermind, the plan and what the outcome is going to be should be his through line. Yeah. And then the anger and the rage and how radical he is going to fluctuate and change based on how the plan goes.
Yeah,
sure. Like whereas Mr. Robot's through line should be protecting the entity of Elliot as much as he can. Yeah. And perhaps he also views that as like, well, to protect Elliot from these terrible things in society, we need the mastermind as well to help get through this. Sure. So it's like a ends justifies the means for him until it gets to a point where it's like we're wrapping this up and concluding with saving the world and getting rid of the Dark Army and taking down the 1%ers or whatever they're doing. Elliot needs to come back, you know? Yeah. The mom one I get a little less. I understand like the kid being like another aspect of like protection and stuff. Like the young Elliot, they said handle the abuse that he couldn't tolerate. Yeah, so but the mom being like the persecutor and stuff. Yeah. I don't really get why he needed the mom personality to persecute and blame him and that.
Sure, I get what you mean. I don't know exactly what the intention is here, but in terms of persecution or perceived persecution, like you can use that to fuel yourself, like giving yourself a motivation that's not actually there. You know?
I was gonna say like people who are like victims of abuse and violence and stuff like that, like one way that they can exhibit symptoms of that is like internalized guilt and you know, taking on the opinions of their abuser and making that a part of themselves.
Sure.
So having someone that is like pushing you further than you yourself would go, because that's what that person would do. Yeah, is kind of
So it's not,
I feel like that's kind of on brand.
It's not quite making someone that's abusing him. Then it's trying to make someone that's pushing him further because now he feels the blame and the issues. So it's his fault, so I need to do something about it. Kind of thing.
It's not quite.
It's building his rage and stuff and anger so that he then will want to do a vigilante thing. Is that kind of the idea?
It's not quite analogous, but Michael Jordan we'll talk about how like to fuel his game, he would literally in his mind like imagine things the other players were saying about him, like they were like saying terrible things, or like he would create narratives, and like in the game he would like, why is he so pissed at me? And like the other teammates would be like, he does that. Like, he literally will create persecution, and it fuels him. I honestly, I mean, it's not as super analogous to Elliot, but I can remember being like in football on the line and just imagining the guy that I'm about ready to hit like insulting my friends and family just so I could hit him harder.
Sure.
So I guess that could be like the persecutor role. So Mr. Robot was the protector personality that was created during the window?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. And then the mom, the persecutor, and then the young version of himself. And which one was to handle abuse he couldn't tolerate? Is that what they said?
That's young Elliot.
That's young
Elliot.
That was
to handle the abuse that Elliot couldn't already take. So he made like another...
the voyeurs are a way for, I suppose, it's kind of like the Greek chorus, I suppose. It's like a narrative observer so that you can find a foundation in what's happening by telling it to somebody. Is that kind of the idea?
Yeah, I guess. I mean,
kind of. It's like, also
it's like your internal monologue, but you're kind of having someone to bounce off.
It's a story that you're telling yourself because you're not certain of what reality is, I guess. So I don't know.
It's also how all the alters like share information as well.
Yeah,
but as opposed to like
how you can keep like an internal narrative, I suppose. Yeah.
Opposed to him talking to Mr. Robot, who also will talk back and argue with him or whatever. We are ones that he just kind of like he just talks and like he's just talking it out. But there's no way of us kind of coming back.
I feel like that's the one I relate to the most. Like. Because when I have an internal monologue, like, who am I talking to?
Well, sure. That's because you don't have the ID. You don't have the multiple personalities.
But I think everybody does this. Like in the shower, you have an argument with like an invisible person.
I was going to say, do you have a conversation with someone who doesn't respond, but yet you know what they said?
I will respond as them sometimes, like create a role, and then like like the amorphous this person that has this opinion,
What?
Yeah.
All right.
But we've talked before, Aaron, about the differences of like imagination. Like like I might imagine the apple hydration droplets of water coming off the redness and this type of thing. And you might be like, I don't imagine an apple at all, or something like that. Or I just think of a circle with a stem in it, or something.
Sure.
Yeah. That's just how I think about internal monologue.
No, usually no one's in the shower with me.
Yeah.
And then I'm just sad.
But I would say that's probably the voyeur one is probably the one that I actually feel like I understand, I relate to the most. I'm certainly not a mastermind, but I do love that name, the Mastermind.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, this was everything I wanted. Like, I loved it so much, I kind of don't care now about my other problems.
2 episodes ago, you're like,
that's art, baby. Exactly.
Yeah, no.
I want that.
Eric, just wait.
I would rather feel that way than like it all the way through. That's a journey. That's a challenge. I like that.
It is interesting that we get a bunch of questions, and the only answer that really matters is it doesn't have to be the truth. It's just whatever they're using to explain something bad that they're protecting Elliot from.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like White Rose's machine, it doesn't matter what it does anymore. Yeah. It was stopped, and Elliot was protected from it.
As a fan of fiction and stories, and wanting to understand why Angela was the way she was at the end.
No, yeah.
Definitely. I want to know, and I do feel like I am upset that I don't know. If I did know it, I might feel better. I might not. I don't know. But because I don't know how I would have felt.
I mean, the answer is that White Rose manipulated her. You know? That's
and it just so happened to be kind of like what Elliot thought was happening.
I mean, White Rose...
It's a little bit of a coincidence for me.
What Elliot thought was happening?
Yeah. Like, this explanation here of what this other world could be, it did fit with what we thought Angela could have gone through, but it turns out it wasn't anything that Angela went through.
Sure, but that's because of the idea of a some kind of perfect world, right? What, and everyone's gonna have their own man, my perfect world would be this, right? White Rose was broken from the loss of someone they cared about, and because of that, went into what they did, and then manipulated and lied and did whatever they could to continue what that agenda was, right? Yeah. Angela was just, I think, another drop in the bucket of manipulation to try to get what White Rose wanted. And whatever Angela thought was going to be the case, she also was broken from the loss of her mom and all the other stuff too. So there's a lot of that just mental...
Yeah, because before that conversation with White Rose and Angela happened, Angela was a force against White Rose. She was taking a lot of the fight along with Wellick and Mr. Robot to White Rose.
She went deep cover and all that stuff,
All that stuff was really happening because she was the driving force behind it. And the Mastermind at that time wasn't really involved. It was Mr. Robot hiding it from him. So taking her out of commission at that pivotal moment was most beneficial to White Rose then.
Yeah.
Well, sure.
And it wasn't really anything to do with showing her the true path or anything like that. It was just
getting her to do what White Rose needed.
Yeah. Just take
put that USB drive in, the big, what was it? Was it a one-shot? The big one-shot?
The big one-shot episode through the building?
I think, right? Like that. Getting her to that point.
Yeah. Would you say that... I mean, I'm trying to be fair. I might be wrong about this, but I guess one thing I don't love about it is that it's a narrative coincidence that Angela was whatever this machine does, or it was told to me that it does, or shown to me that it does, those that you've lost, you'll get again. You'll be in a world that everything's perfect. And then Elliot got into a world where everything's perfect. And I could say, well, maybe in hearing Angela do that, he constructed that in the Mind Palace prison thing, but he's been doing this for a long time.
No, but it also wasn't perfect, though. It was just a loop to keep that Elliot, contained, right? So, there was no Darlene.
But it has nothing to do with those two things, is what I was saying. It's a narrative coincidence.
I mean, I suppose if you... I don't know that it's a narrative coincidence that he trapped him in a place that would keep him satisfied enough. You know what I mean? Like, that seems like...
I think we assigned more meaning to it than it originally had. Like, if you take them in isolation, like Angela saying, like, you know, they're all going to come back, you know, it's all going to be okay again.
Yeah, this stuff doesn't matter because it'll be fixed.
And isn't necessarily the same thing as this machine creates a utopia for everyone.
You're also looking at that as, look, he got everything back that he wanted when it was created to trap Elliot. Angela was alive. He knew Price was her real father. Like, all the things that were there were things that he was just like, there was a romantic connection between Elliot and Angela back in the first season, you know? Like, there was all these things. So, like, he just created, like, here's a world you're going to be happy in, and it's going to be boring, but you're not going to be thinking about what this is, you know? We're looking at it as a coincidence because Angela was dead. Price was dead. All these people and changes that have happened we're putting into here. The only real difference was just like, let's make sure Elliot feels happier by not giving him the trauma that created all these multiple personalities. That's the main difference that kind of occurred in that dream sequence. So, like, I think that would be, if they did another story and didn't have that at all, when you get to that point, you would be like, oh, okay, well, that makes sense because you want him to be content with where he is. If you didn't have the White Rose thing. The White Rose thing is just, I think everyone wants that happy, content world, or even if it's not even like parallel universe or I don't know, whatever that kind of stuff is, the idea of getting back the people you lost is, I think, a thing that anybody could be
absolutely
interested in. It's why people go to, you know, talk to mediums about like their lost, you know, husbands or siblings or whatever it is trying to find that connection that you're missing, you know? And then people just take advantage of that. I think that's what happened with Angela. White Rose just was able to take advantage of that. Even if White Rose also believed that somehow they could do this thing that she was after. So I don't know. I think you could look at it as coincidence, but I think you would also, if you didn't have the White Rose like machine aspect, I mean, it wouldn't be like, well, that seems perfect. Because it would seem perfect for him. So
no, I understand.
So I don't know.
Yeah.
I think
it's a bit of a speed bump for me, but not. I mean, just because I'm so curious about what Angela's continuity of thought was, you know. But and I wish I had it, but everything else. I mean, just this revelation just recontextualizes everything. I still don't understand exactly what the blue light was in the forest with Wellick. But I do also understand now that we kind of had, like, we've already known that we've had an unreliable narrator. We just didn't realize how unreliable he actually was, because in this show, we never actually got to meet Elliot Alderson, which is real crazy to think.
I was really confused whenever it's like, this ID, it says it's Elliot Alderson, you're not Elliot Alderson. I'm like, well, this is weird. What is this about?
And it makes sense why Dom would be the avatar of police, you know, in his mind prison. But man, I loved that segment where you could just hear the metal sounds where there should be. That was so cool. That was just I was just in awe of that moment. It's rare that I feel in awe of an idea, and that was amazing.
No, I think to, you know, all the Angela stuff. After she meets White Rose, I don't think anything can be taken at face value. There was too much manipulation and brainwashing and trying to break her and make her.
And there's like nothing Elliot can hack to get the information that we would then be able to know. You know, like it's all internal to Angela. And then we see her in her last moments broken and being like I think even she was like, I was like, if this wasn't real, what did I do it for? And then that's why she like says all the things she says and wants revenge on White Rose because she killed these people for nothing. You know, like she got to that point where like now I'm woken up. From what I thought was the truth.
She broke the illusion, right? The mirror shattered and she could see through.
And then she was no longer useful to White Rose, and White Rose had her killed.
Or she was too dangerous to be left alive. Because she was very effective before that.
She would have been dead had it not been for Price, I think, anyway, right? He was the only one who was like, you know, hey,
he was protecting
daughter,
her.
Don't kill her kind of thing.
And I think it's natural that people are going to have a curiosity of like, I would like to learn more about that. Like, what was that, you know? But I also understand, like, that's not the point.
Sure. Us seeing Elliot, like, we met Elliot. That was him. In that we had one day with who was essentially Elliot Alderson. Right? And then whenever he wakes up there, like we're just like, that's who's there now, right? We don't need to know about anything else. And for all intents and purposes, like this show is just like, it could be like Mastermind is now a thing, and we are just here with it. But I feel like it's more of like he has created us as a vessel, and now we go through with the show.
Sure.
You know?
We're effectively like Mastermind's journal in a way of him trying to sort all this stuff out.
We're a love letter to Elliot from all of his alters.
Sure.
Like,
Yeah.
I mean,
who else knows everything that happened
Yeah.
other than us, right?
Yeah. And I'm sure I'm reading into it too much, but the final shot of the empty theater with just the family in the middle, like it gives you the feeling of all the empty seats are actually filled by the voyeurs.
Sure.
Well, I mean, that's why we're also staring out the window with it at the end, you know?
Yeah.
And why we're looking at Mr. Robot and the Mastermind and the child and the mother.
Yeah.
It's like we're just always observing.
Do you think it's just a cinematography choice throughout the show, or is it intentional? Because, you know, Mr. Robot, like, now when I watch stuff, I go, that's a Mr. Robot shot. Whenever it's off kilter and you don't quite have a perfect perspective.
Sure.
Do you think that's indicative of Elliot?
I was thinking about it being during this episode with shots and stuff, because there was one shot where I was like, man, it's just off a little bit.
Yeah.
But I think like maybe you do that where it's like, man, there's so many shots that are just, something's just off a little bit, you know? Like the rules are usually putting it here or on thirds or in the center.
That's
like,
it happened in shots where Elliot wasn't in the scene though too.
No, it would, but you're still, we are still Elliot.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, we're always seeing all kinds of things.
Yeah, we're
so
seeing, like I'm not even saying it's
the voyeurs.
I'm not saying that's Mr. Robot's, Mastermind's perspective. That's us. Our perspective is off because we also are part of Elliot.
I think there's just that idea where, like, when you watch it, like, you'll just watch through and you're like, something just doesn't seem quite right if you know the rules of cinematography, which most people do because they've watched other shows and movies that usually follow all those rules.
They understand it even if they can't explain it.
So whenever you're in a shot and you're like, there is so much ceiling in this hallway, and it took 5 seconds before the people's heads were at the bottom of the shot.
Yeah.
You know, like, that's a
subtitles
weird
are blocking the eyes, you know?
like he's tiny down here in the bottom corner and there's all this space and it's like, why are we doing that? But maybe it is a kind of a thing where it's like, it just leaves you a little bit where you're like, that's weird.
It's probably like
odd.
My strongest piece of evidence that I could present as being like, no, this was the intention the entire time. Because it was so consistent.
I mean, yeah.
And again, if it wasn't, the fact that we can read into that and it makes so much sense is almost better than if it wasn't intended. That's where creative art happens, you know? We're like, oh, and it could have been this. And the artist is like, yeah, sure, that sounds good. You know, I love when I hear stories about that, when like fans will make something up and the artist will be like, that's awesome. I never thought of that, but I love it. You know, it's like a collaboration there. But,
yeah, I was trying to look up the heroes thing because I was like, it shows it so much.
Yeah. The movie poster thing or whatever it was.
Yeah.
Like heroes against all evil or something.
Well, his hero, evil never wins, but that's what's in his mind place, right? When I was looking at it, there was a thing that popped up that says Season 1, Episode 1 on the subway had coming this summer, villains. Evil always wins. Like that was the.
That's cool.
That was the poster they had
Hell
in the first episode. Versus in his special world, heroes always win. You know.
I wasn't even thinking about it, but now that we're done with the show, we get to dive into the fan community and see theories and
see all the fan theories and stuff.
You know what the storytellers have confirmed, what they haven't, that type of thing. That's one of my favorite parts of watching a show like this. Is getting to the end. And
I did get the feeling like. Halfway through this episode was like, is the Mastermind ceding control because they are dying? And like I think Aaron and I just mentioned it quickly in the episode when it was like, is he like having the your life flashes before your eyes before you die kind of thing.
When you're dying, your brain floods with DMT.
Yeah. Is he awash with watching the entirety of his life play out from a different point of view because he realizes that he is the alter personality now, and is is he stepping back to be with the others while
I understand.
Elliot comes forward and experiences death, you know?
Yeah.
Is that what was happening? Which I think maybe could still be the case, but I think
after
things
getting to the end with Darlene and stuff, I don't think it is anymore. But whenever Mr. Robot was talking about this isn't the world and this isn't what you think it is, and I'm like, he's like, I thought about like the life flashing before your eyes. You get stuck into a world where it's perfect, and you know you're trying to fight to survive, kind of thing. So like he's killing himself to try to stay alive in this world because there can't be two, you know, like. But I was like, that could be an interesting thing, and Elliot sacrifices himself to save the world. But the route they went, I think it's more of like that Mastermind was trying to hold on to being Elliot.
Yeah.
And he lets him wake up.
That's how Elliot survives, is the Mastermind wins and then gives everything that they have achieved to Elliot.
Yeah.
Right?
Mr. Robot, when he takes over Elliot's body, like the one when he's getting punched, like those guys come out come out on the street and they start attacking him, and it's Mr. Robot taking the hits so that Elliot doesn't have to.
Yeah.
But at some point, the pain and the damage and all that stuff has stopped, and Mr. Robot doesn't need to be in control anymore, and Elliot can come back into control. Like, I think Mastermind should be able to work the same way, where you have it where here's the things I want to do, and then when you have accomplished that, when Darlene says you have saved the world, you know?
Yeah.
Like, now Elliot can come back and enjoy what Mastermind has done. He has accomplished his goal, kind of thing.
Yeah.
This might be
like...
But there's always evil in the world, so in a way, you can always have the... I think it's too, like, there's all this vigilante stuff that he has in that notebook, where there's all these people he has stopped. The child pornography guy, and the guy who's selling the drugs doing this, and murderers or whatever. But then, like, there's always a greater evil. But now he's, like, tackled that high 1%, the elite, Deus Ex Machina, you know, bad guy things, you know? Like, now you've taken out the top. You've beaten evil. You know, like, it's like taking out that one guy at the coffee shop was just a little evil, you know?
That was
but
like
now
his
you're
first
at the
taste,
bigger
sure.
thing. Yeah, like...
He's like...
It's like a goal you don't think you can really accomplish.
He's like Alexander in this episode. It's like he is sad because he has no more lands to conquer.
Yeah, sure.
And now...
I am great because it's all mine.
Yeah. But now, like, his passion, there's no more...
It needs to shift now to something else, right?
There's no more thing to mastermind on, and now it's ready for Elliot.
Yeah. In a general theory.
Yeah.
Like, you're never going to really kill evil, you know?
No.
But this is, like, one of the hardest things to defeat, I think, as opposed to, like, the guy at the coffee shop, you know?
Yeah.
So, I feel like it's like, here's an unreachable goal, and Mastermind would always just be in control, but we have actually attained that goal.
Yeah.
Unbelievably. Yeah.
This question might not make sense. Maybe it does. Whose decision was it to keep Darlene out of the perfect world? And have it be... that was his decision?
I think it had to be the
it's not his
Mastermind.
active decision. It's his subconscious decision.
Well...
It's just hard to talk about his subconscious because his subconscious sometimes is personified by other identities.
Sure.
So
I still think it does count as his subconscious.
Yeah.
I think they're like... I think the conversation that Darlene and the Mastermind towards the end had of like, I always promised that if it was real, then I would be here and I would be holding your hand.
Yeah.
I think that's an immutable rule that all of them follow, that like they're not using the ultimate weapon to fool Elliot Alderson. Like, that was the one thing that could get Elliot out of the illusion, the perfect world that the Mastermind had built for them. So they needed that to be the key, right? To open that door.
Yeah, I mean, I was just curious on like the... Because, I mean, he created this world unintentionally, I suppose, right?
Sure.
Like, there's no... He didn't...
Because of the prowess of his intelligence.
He was an active agent in choosing how that worked. It just happened because he is the mastermind. Like, he can just do those things. That's the way his mind works.
Like, if you can imagine
it's a part of a mind. I get
even
that.
Unconsciously, it is possible, I guess.
Why do you think... It's interesting. It feels like all the other alters have an understanding of what's happening, except for Mastermind. Is it just because he's the newest and he just doesn't have the experience they do, you think?
Could be.
Like, I wonder if they all had to also kind of go through a...
it also seems like...
a thing like that, you know?
Yeah, it also seems like that altar was created by the others, if that makes sense. Like...
Well, it does, because the others are just Elliot.
Sure.
Right?
The others were created to protect Elliot from things that were happening to him, but
Well,
I think they saw the pattern of, like, bad things are going to keep happening to him. We need to make it to where he doesn't keep having
And
bad things happen to
it
him.
gives him an outlet, it gives him a way to express his rage positively by having
outlet.
change on the world, I
Sure,
suppose.
but they also said, like, Mastermind changed the past.
Yeah.
Right? So, like, in making Perfect World and changing the who pushed who out the window,
Yeah.
like, all those
He
kind of
overwrote.
things. Yeah, getting rid of Darlene, like, I feel like if he formed and then he created this paradise to trap Elliot in and then change the past so that he wouldn't have to struggle with this trauma aspect and then could focus on what the actual mission was meant to be.
So he created stuff, and then he limited himself to
that said information, right?
Yeah, to work in his creation.
He needed not to have that his dad did that and he jumped out the
Sure.
window. He needed to not have Darlene be a distraction in what
Yeah.
his main goal was. He needed to, like, all these things that were the trauma aspects or the connections for the real Elliot, he was rewriting and changing so that he
'cause
could do the mission, I think.
He would want Darlene to be in Elliot's life once he ceded control back to Elliot. So he made a relationship. He rebuilt that relationship with Darlene so that it would be ready for Elliot
in the future.
And that's Mastermind doing that to himself, his own personality?
I mean, yeah.
As a product of
saying
his will.
Yeah. I think it's super interesting that he effectively, depending on your definition, created a different personality of himself.
Yeah.
Because so much of personality is about experience and what you think of yourself.
He closed off memories.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
In a way, it's you can say it's a new personality, but it's kind of just like, I don't want to think about these. But like, it's those moments when you walk in and you smell something and then a memory you have forgotten for years just triggers,
clicks,
right?
yeah.
It's just like something he's pushed away to try to not remember, but it can still, I mean, eventually it came out, right? The Vera episode that was a whole push towards him discovering and remembering that when he had buried it away and tried to not,
Sure. No, and I understand the folly what I'm doing, which is trying to rationalize the irrational.
You're trying to rationalize multiple personalities all being in one mind.
That's what makes it fun, I guess. I don't know.
It's a really interesting...
That's why I like The Matrix. That's why I like Lost. So I like doing that.
It's a really interesting, exercise, I guess, in exploring that kind of, I don't know, untested waters. Yeah. Uncharted territory.
It feels like the more mature, more serious version of what Jane went through in Doom Patrol a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah, where we bury the real self.
Yeah.
So that they don't have to deal with it.
Yeah.
And this person's in control. But here they want to give control back to the original, right? Mm-hmm. So there's a lot of connections to like that. And that was also, I think, DID, wasn't it?
Yeah.
I think.
DID with powers.
Mm-hmm.
Well, sure, yeah. Not everybody, but some of them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's just
but
I don't understand how those things work and operate.
Yeah.
I've not studied enough or been involved and had that as a thing. So
having a pocket dimension that you can interact with your alters and your friends can interact with your alters.
Which both of those, this and that, had that element, right? They had some location where it was like, here's where we can come and talk and make decisions and stuff. Like, here's our council area,
Sort of.
I know this shouldn't be a focus of mine, but what happened to Flipper?
Huh?
His dog. And if they meet again, will Flipper recognize Elliot or miss Mastermind?
Smells the same.
Yeah, he would. But there's the idea of like dogs, like they can sense hurricane or earthquakes, and they can see ghosts and stuff like that. I just thought it'd be like a fun.
Is QWERTY okay?
QWERTY, yeah, I don't know.
We saw QWERTY in this episode when it was like switching back and forth.
In this episode, last time I remember QWERTY was in the room with the computer, where it was things blew up.
Yeah.
But the inside there was okay, I suppose. But
yeah.
Did anyone like get Elliot out of there? Find White Rose? I'm like, oh damn, it's fish. Better get him out of here. Or is he just there? Or, I don't remember what happened to Flipper.
It's been a bit.
I forget. I don't know if I wrote it down or not.
Yeah.
I remember something being said about Flipper. Yeah, I think it was like 5 or 6 episodes ago, and he was like, I have to go pick up Flipper from somewhere or something like that. Like, I can't remember. It was. I got the feeling that like someone that he knew was like dog sitting, something. Okay. I don't know. But assumedly after that scene, he went and picked him up, so he should have him.
Flipper was shown to have returned to Elliot, seen tottering around Elliot's flat during season 3, episode 8. Flipper's last scene when Flipper and Elliot are hiding from the Dark Army members and Grant after they left. They later went back to the room only to discover the Dark Army trashed his room. And I don't know where he went.
I hope Flipper's okay.
I saw a thing where like some guy like walked up on a dog and was like, I don't know what the name of the dog was. George, is that you? And it was like, it's been 3 years. This dog has escaped.
It's like a homeless guy.
And he didn't know where it was, and he just found his dog out, and the dog's like, it's like,
I like it. It always takes dogs like a good like 5 sniffs. That's you. Yeah,
I thought it was funny.
Yeah,
interesting.
It's a good video.
I love those videos of like CCTV footage or something like that of like just like crowds of people walking by or something, and there's like a dog sitting like next to a tree in a park or something, and just and it gets up and it goes person to person, checks him, and it like makes a beeline for one person as soon as they see him.
They say dogs can smell individual people the way that we can identify skunks.
Yeah.
From like a mile away, you can be like, that's a skunk, and you know it's a skunk. They can do that for individual people. It's crazy. I also love the videos where it's like a dog just being like, and then it freaks out and runs off, and then 10 seconds later.
Yeah.
What's this?
Earthquake.
Or
okay.
Or whatever. Yeah.
I was like, what's this mean? What's the dog doing?
It's fire! What is that dog doing? Well, I definitely don't feel like I'm done talking about the show. It's one of those shows. Well, I understand why people.
I had heard that a lot of people were very unsatisfied and upset with the end of the show, but honestly, like for what this show, for the story that this show told, it's perfect because it's not a story about Elliot Alderson.
Interesting. Yeah, I feel like the opposite. I feel like I wasn't satisfied or loved the show until I watched the end.
Yeah.
Because I was just on
shaky
foundation the whole time.
Yeah. I feel like everyone else thought they knew what it was, and the whole time we didn't know what it was. And then,
I would have
opposite was true for both perspectives.
I probably would have loved a show that was just like badass hacker to hacker.
No, yeah,
hacker man.
absolutely.
That would have been cool. That's what I kind of thought we were getting.
Sure.
No, I think that like the show for me, I wasn't sure, and I was kind of on shaky ground a little bit in some seasons because season 1, I'm like, okay, and then we're like, dude, he's not real, right? That guy's not real. He just sees him,
sure.
And
it's like no one else talks to him.
And then like after you get to that, I'm like, okay, well now we know that. I don't know what we're doing here. And then you're like, oh, he's not in prison, or whatever. Like, or no, he is in prison, right? Because that was the thing where like you didn't think he was. He was hanging with his mom and stuff, and but then like you get into the middle part, and like I think some of the best episodes of like just willing to do whatever they wanted. Mm-hmm. Like I love how they did like the one shot. I love how they did like the sitcom episode. I love how they did the no talking episode.
The no talking episode was really
and
good.
like stuff happened. Like it wasn't like, hey, let's do an episode. There's no talking, and it was like boring. Nothing's going on. It was like lots of stuff was conveyed. Lots of things were going on, and it was just done really well. Like all those episodes of television I thought were done really well. And then we get to the end, and I'm like, I'm wanting to know how are we wrapping this up? What is White Rose and this thing?
Yeah.
But I think the way this ends with like Elliot attempting to kill himself, you know, like he attempted to do that before. He's attempted to do that other times and stuff. He jumped out of like there's different times where he's not cared for his safety or he wanted to die, and like here he's fighting himself to try to stay alive, you know. And it's interesting to have a different like I don't know. Is dichotomy the right word? Like just that there's that different feel of what he's wanting to do. Where you're like, I thought it was this, and now it's this. Yeah. He's willing to steal his own life from himself so he can live. So I don't know. I think it plays really well as a whole for the story, but also like in the idea of these multiple personalities and where it's going with Elliot and who you think Elliot is. Like I think it played really well, and I don't necessarily need to know Elliot Alderson. This story was about Mr. Robot.
Yeah,
and
Mastermind was the protagonist. He's just one of Elliot.
Yeah, this was the comic book story that he was writing. We were just watching it play out. Yeah, and now Elliot's in that world that he has saved.
It's like some of the interactions that he had were very like dream state like when Elliot handed his ID over to Dom. We never saw the picture, but the mastermind knew that it was wrong. So the dream changed at the point where like it can either resolve or issues can arise. Issues arose because like subconsciously he knew that this was not the right version, the way things were supposed to go. He wasn't meant to take over and have the perfect life. He was meant to give it to someone else. And that someone else like isn't pictured.
Sure.
Dude,
because he's still like obscured from his view.
He could have just swapped him and took his life and let Elliot have his life. You know? Like he could just be like, hey, this life is perfect. I can marry Angela. I'll just live here.
Sure.
Yeah. No, I appreciate that the show, it didn't feel like it was written for or produced for the general audience. Let's try to please everybody.
Yeah.
Let's make sure everybody has something they can see, and you know, like it's not like Star Wars, Clone Wars, where it's like
there's something for everyone.
Yeah, by the very like every 3-year-olds need to understand this.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah. No, this is a lot more like Dark, where
it is.
There's not always one answer or a direct line from one thing to another. There's not always a traceable cause and effect.
Yeah.
It's just humanity.
And because you're not necessarily going for the general audience, like I think we all have certain emotions and results from watching things that we enjoy. Like I love surprising but obvious. Like that's one of my favorite feelings to feel when I watch something. One of my least favorite things to watch something is confusion. I felt like I was confused a lot of the times in this show.
You would not like what was the Blue movie we watched? Perfect Blue.
I was there. You were?
Damn, I don't remember you being a...
It was us three.
That was me, man. Yeah, you're trying to confuse me right now, Calvin.
I'm so confused.
Yeah, but no, I'm just saying, like, confusion in general. I mean, I think that there's been times when I watch something and I do enjoy it. There's other times when I don't, you know. But I respect that the show, I don't know, almost kind of like fearlessly told the story it was trying to tell without fear of losing people along the way. Because there's going to be other people like me that don't enjoy that feeling.
I feel like it's, I mean, not every story I think should be made for everybody.
No,
I think that this was a story that was like, here's what I want to do. Let's tell this story. Like, I'm glad that it went 4 seasons. Yeah. And it felt like it was telling the story it wanted to.
Yeah, exactly as far as it needed to.
As opposed to some shows where it's like, well, let's go further with it. When are we going to end it? You know, that's happened with Lost, with Supernatural, with different things where it's like, it's doing really well. Let's keep it going. It's like, but...
Sure.
What's the story? Let's make sure that's the focus. And I think that this is... I feel like this show did that, where it's like, we have a story we want to tell of Elliot Alderson and his hacking, vigilantism.
I like the episode title and description.
Hello, Elliot. Goodbye, friend. It's like a call and response.
Yeah. I was looking because the very first episode was... I mean, they changed the way it was, but it's hellofriend.mov.
Yeah. Nice. Cool.
But yeah, later.
Some of those episode titles, man, throughout the seasons. Whew.
Oh yeah. I mean, the last.
There's one person's like, I understand why, but the last 5 titles are wrong. They're shifted over one or something like that.
Yeah. Fuck. Well, the last season is still kind of like related to things, but
yeah, all the error codes.
Yeah, I love all the error codes.
Mm-hmm.
And then we get out of error codes and we have
Exit, which is the game.
We have Who Am I? And then we have Hello Elliot. And I like that it's Hello Elliot because like that, the final episode being called Hello Elliot is that he's finally getting out into the world where the whole series he's not been. I like that.
Yeah. I also could not help but think during that scene with Darlene of like, Elliot, I'll be right here with E.T.
Yeah.
I just couldn't help it.
I've not seen it in longer.
And having my name be Elliot, no one has ever done that to me.
No one's ever done that to you, huh?
No one. I remember someone.
Well, it's because I didn't know you in high school, and I didn't call you Elliot.
I remember people call me Elliot back in school all the time, but I don't know if we were just like a little too young that like E.T. wasn't like real big during our time kind of thing or something, you know? I don't know. Like I've watched Elliot or I've watched E.T. a time or two, but it wasn't like the things I watched all the time. You know?
I get you. Yeah.
So I don't know. But yeah, you would think that would have hurt a lot. Be like, aha, funny, Eric.
Well, I mean, like I said, I don't kind of feel like I'm done talking about the show, but maybe I need to take a break, go back, look at some stuff. Might be a fun podcast, this show, I think.
I'm sure there's probably a lot of connections, like that sign. I mean, having that sign in episode 1 to the final episode being like, villains, heroes.
Yeah.
Like, that's a nice connection of a through line through the entire series.
I would especially like to see, like, you know, bloopers, interviews with the actors, especially because the writers and the producers might have an idea of where this was going, but generally the actors don't, you know, and they have to act like they do or still give a performance, you know, that they're directed to give or whatever. So I'd just be kind of interested in how they felt about where they arrived, too.
I would be curious because I'm pretty sure Christian Slater was a producer for most, if not all, of the show.
He was, yeah.
So, like, he may have had an idea of where the characters, like, a lot of that stuff were going to go, depending on how involved he was. Because, like, lots of times when you have the producers who are also, like, lead actors in the show, like, they're helping a lot on what the characters and stories, because a lot of times the actors are the ones, I think, that know the characters better. Because especially when you have, like, in a lot of TV shows where, like, writers are, well, this guy wrote this episode, and this guy wrote this episode, and this guy wrote this episode. The through line is the actor, and they're playing the character. And a lot of times I feel like those are the people who know what that character is supposed to feel and supposed to be doing. And stuff.
It depends
just what's
on
that general story that we're doing for the through line.
It can also just depend on the writer room structure. Like, sometimes they'll have, like, 15 people in a room that break the whole season, and then they parse it out and be like, all right, you do this one, you do this one, you do this one. But they all kind of know it, but that's not the case for every show.
No.
At all.
No,
so.
and I don't know what they did on this one.
Yeah. Okay, well, I mean, there's still a lot left to learn, I feel like, but I finally, after watching Mr. Robot, can say I feel satisfied. I think every episode since, except for, like, the ones that are, like, the one shot or the no talking, where, like, just the idea and the execution is so satisfying. I don't even care about the story, but story-wise, character-wise, I feel very satisfied. Which I did not expect 2 episodes ago.
Yeah.
Doubt it.
Yep.
You were afraid it was gonna be like Lost.
It's not. No, I've had that conversation.
Guys, thank you so much for watching Mr. Robot with us. But we have another show that is going to be taking this spot, and it has already started.
Yep.
You can find it here on the channel. You subscribe, and it has like 5 weeks early access with it too.
Yep.
So go check it out and update your recommendations. Tell us what other shows we should be checking out in the future.
And thanks to everybody that voted for Mr. Robot.